Magic the Gathering has just introduced an exciting new planeswalker, but I am plagued by one giant question. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about the brand new planeswalker from Theros Beyond Death. So let's just dive right into it and get them up on the screen right now. You are looking at Calix, Destiny's Hand. Now, I did a video speculating on who this guy would be. Essentially, all we had was a little piece of artwork and some voice clips from Arena. And I speculated on a number of different possibilities of what we might be dealing with, and some of my predictions turned out to be correct. So, let's take a look at him. 1 white, 1 green, and 2 for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. His first ability is take a look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that card into your hand. You put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order, and that is his +1 loyalty. His -3 loyalty is exile target creature or enchantment you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. And -7, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. So that's the card on the surface of it. Now, unfortunately, because of the way things are being done by Wizards of the Coast now, we have very, very scant details about the flavor, the lore, what's lying underneath all of this. We have a little blurb along with, we do admittedly have the 80 some odd voice clips that help to define his character a bit. And what I'll do is I'll actually put a link at the end of this video if you want to go back and hear all my thoughts on the possibilities for him, because honestly, with the amount of information we have available here, there's still plenty of room for conjecture about this character. So basically, it's a scenario where Wizards of the Coast has just given us a tiny little paragraph. Basically, it says, Calix was created as an agent of fate specifically to reweave Elspeth into the pattern, but her irrational desire to be free of eternal peace confounds him. Created by Clothice, something must happen to ignite his spark. ... And that's it. That's literally all that they give us. Now, when I talked about him, I surmised that he might indeed be a white-green planeswalker, and I was right about that. I also said that from the information that was provided, that he had to be a servant of Clothice, and that is indeed correct as well. There's really, there's not that much to know about him other than that he was specifically created as a tool to rein in Elspeth. Now, I said I have a huge question that's plagued me, and the huge question is, how does he get a spark? How does he end up with a spark? Did they take Xenagos' spark when Xenagos got destroyed in Nyx and infuse him with the spark that way? How do you create a being and then it's basically like he has an inborn kind of spark? That's how they're treating it with the something has to happen to ignite his spark. Is his spark natural? What does this mean for planeswalkers overall in Magic the Gathering as well? In all honesty, it does make me wonder. Now, the artwork for Calix is pretty funky. You can take a look. We actually have the full-sized artwork for him here, and you get a better view of everything at this, because honestly, when you look at the regular version of his artwork that just shows up on the card, it's harder to see all the details. You may not notice everything that's going on, but you've got him here standing he's standing inside the temple, most likely. That was depicted by Clothice on her card. That's a nice little touch. I enjoy that. You've got these massive sort of marbled pillars. And it looks like they might be inlaid with gold that are kind of framing him in a way. You can see the Nyxian aspect infused into him as he's got the green starlight sparkle on one. It's interesting how it's on one side of the top of his head, but then when it comes down his torso, it's along the other side. And apparently he's dressed in the same manner as Clothice, as a disciple of her. He has this big old open V-neck. You want to talk about a V-neck? This is going all the way down to belly button territory. It's got to paint an interesting picture for people who are visually impaired who end up watching this. But anyways, the extra details that are included, like being able to see the little brazier that's burning with coals down in the bottom corner there, that adds to the whole temple feel. And the way that the threads, like Clothice uses threads of fate, you can see them weaving all around him. He's got sort of a knitting needle kind of spear almost. It seems like the tip of his spear. Now, I could be wrong, but it looks to me like the tip of his spear actually is detachable and it is connected along with all of those threads of Clothice's. It actually makes me wonder if it would be better if the head of this was just detachable and can fly on its own. If you guys have seen Guardians of the Galaxy, what's his name? Yondu? The Yondu, that character is amazing. Anyways, Yondu's got this, like, essentially a magic arrow that he can whistle and it will just fly through all kinds of targets, right? And I could see how if you could just detach the tip of this spear and have it be an independent unit, that it might actually be better in most regards. Although theoretically you could use the threads for different purposes to bind people as well. So I suppose there are advantages and disadvantages to this style of weaponry. But you can see what looks like a spool of Clothice's like hair strands of fate wound up in the tip of the spear up near the head, and then the actual tip of the spear has busted off and zipped all over the place. And also kind of does have that knitting needle kind of feel to it. Like, admittedly a big knitting needle, but it has that kind of like weaving fate feel to it. And that's the regular artwork, because this card's going to have special treatment in terms of what you can get in the collector's boosters with the extended bordered like marble statue versions. We already saw these for the other planeswalkers, for Elspeth and Ashiok, although admittedly I have yet to do a video for Ashiok, but we've seen the marble statue versions. I like this concept, and when we look at this marble statue here, you can see when you look at his spear specifically, contrasted to the artwork we just looked at, that the spear tip is attached and there's far less of the thread that is like wound out about. There is a bit trailing off the like middle of the spear, and you know, it's straight across his fingers there, kind of like a bunch of linguine noodles, like a bunch of pasta noodles for you. But you can see in the background as well, you've got Clothice standing there, just kind of the giant face over his shoulder. It's all right artwork. It's pretty funky. I like the fact that they chose for Theros because it's got that whole Greek feel to it to go with these ancient marble statue concepts for the Planeswalkers specifically. It is distinctive, so not too shabby. Now, when we break down the actual card itself into each ability, there are cards that are very, very similar to each individual ability. So for example, the first ability, which is +1, look at the top 4 cards of your library, you may reveal an enchantment card from among them and put that into your hand. Well, that one is very similar to Commune with the Gods from the original Theros block. And that's 1 green and 1 to reveal the top 5 cards of your library. You may put a creature or enchantment card from among them into your hand, put the rest into your graveyard. It says, for the first time in many years, Elspeth asked for help. This card is the closest version to the first ability of Calix that you can really find in Magic the Gathering. There is no direct, just look at the top 4 and get an enchantment card currently existing in Magic. So this is the closest, and it also feels like it fits with it flavorfully because, I mean, in a way, Calix is communing, I assume, with Fate and Clothice, and that's why he's able to bring in more Nixian, or other, I guess, non-Nixian as well, right? But when we talk about Theros, normally enchantment stuff is Nixian in origin. Not all of it, but a lot of it is, and everything that is Nixian is enchantment in nature. So this is a scenario where he can be basically calling out to other gods, he could be reaching out to Clothice, he could be just reaching into Nyx for Nixian essence, any number of options, but it feels like it parallels fairly well with Commune with the Gods. Now, the second ability that we have on Calix is interesting because it's always nice when you have a Planeswalker that can protect themselves from threats. And Calix can, but in a far more conditional way than like big smashy goof cards like Oko, where you're just like, oh, look at me, I'm just going to make everything into an elk. So this one's -3 to exile a creature or enchantment that you don't control until target enchantment you control leaves the battlefield. And this is very similar to another card from the times of Theros, and that's Banishing Light. This is another card that we saw originally show up in the first Theros block. So Banishing Light is 1 white and 2 for an enchantment that says, when Banishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. And we've seen a whole range of different cards like this through Magic's history. The whole, I'm going to remove you for now, but you can come back. So Calix has that same sort of feel to it. Now, obviously, Banishing Light can get any non-land permanent, whereas we're only talking enchantment and creature. But as a reusable effect, that's not too shabby. And having it tied to requiring there be an enchantment out makes sense in terms of limiting the power of it, and also giving it a different kind of flavor, where it's like, basically, Calix can use the power of enchantments to imprison other beings, and as an emissary who's sent out to try and restore balance, specifically in regards to weaving Elspeth back into the pattern of fate, the idea of being able to entrap things inside of enchantments works very well. And speaking of Banishing Light, since we're on the subject, the artwork and flavor concept for this is amazing. That's a Nixian Hydra, a multi-headed Nixian Hydra, and you have the whole, this is like the David versus Goliath style moment, where you have a sling and a single stone. The flavor text says, the champion reached for a stone, and Heliod placed the sun into her hand. Basically, the idea of slinging a stone with the power of the sun infused into it, and it's so strong that it could tear essentially a god Hydra into fragments. That is some really, really interesting flavor. I dig that. And then the final ability that we have on Calix actually has the most close parallel. The final ability is -7, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And that actually echoes a much older card that has nothing to do with the Theros block and goes all the way back to, I believe, what was probably the first enchantment-themed set, which would be Urza's Destiny. And that has the cost of 1 white and 3. It's a sorcery. Return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to play. And I love the old school wording. Local enchantments with no permanent to enchant remain in your graveyard. If you guys don't know what local enchantments are, there was a point in Magic's history where the enchantments that didn't go on anything were considered global enchantments, and enchant creatures, enchant artifacts, anything that enchanted a permanent would have been considered a local enchantment. Man, that's so old school that sometimes I even forget that was a thing. And the flavor text says, treasures, trinkets, trash, the relics of the past are brought forth again. And you have some sort of mausoleum with like little energy tentacles coming out of it. So that's cool. I mean, those are different enchantments that are just somehow rising up all at once and tangling on out into the universe. But either way, I like the fact that each of Calix's abilities basically are roughly equivalent to particular cards in Magic, with Replenish and his final ultimate ability being essentially identical. So, my friends, let me know what you think about this card. Are you excited about Magic's newest Planeswalker? Got any theories about how he gets his spark? What's going on with his spark? Because to me, that's the biggest question out of all of it. I want to know, how did he get his spark? I find myself a little, what is it? A little unfulfilled when it comes to the Magic story and not having as much information as I would like. I feel like this is the first spoiler season in a long time where we're not getting that much information about the story to go along with the cards, and I want more. I want more story information. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. End of the video, I'm going to have the previous video talking and guessing about what this guy might be linked, and I'll also put up a link to my other channel where we just released a very funny video. All right, so thanks for coming by. Big shout out to all my patrons and channel members, and I shall see you all tomorrow. Remember, together we are the 6th color of Magic.